What is up, fight fans? It is time for the MMA plug presented to you by Mile High Sports. We're coming to you live from the number 38 presented by Volo. It is coming up on springtime, so there are no shortage of those adult recreational activities that are going to be on the slate for you from Volo, whether you're interested in softball, volleyball, dodgeball, any of the things out there in the mix that you could possibly imagine on the adult recreational scene. Volo has you covered for those things there. Also, make sure that you come down to the number 38 and check out some of these watch party opportunities and just check out the venue overall as a whole. It's a tremendous sports bar atmosphere down here with lots of great menus on the food item, as well as an entire bar filled with lots of your favorites on tap. You can check out the games across all of the TVs, all of the viewing areas across the space. It's an awesome atmosphere to come down and check out some stuff. So you can see that here at the number 38. There is also Mile High Sports merchandise available on demand at any point that you wish. So all you got to do is come right through the door. Right to the right side of that, there is a vending machine where you could pick up any of that Mile High merchandise at any point in time. Make sure that you check all of that out. Want to give a huge shout out to the whole Mile High Sports crew as a whole right now. Right now, in the Mile High City, you can make the absolute argument that it is, bar none, the best sports city in the nation right now. I don't know if there's really any place out there in America right now that can debate that. I mean, I got my man Danny Bailey behind the boards right there. Danny, is there any place out there that could even give Denver a run for its money right now?
Not right now. I don't think so.
I mean, just taking a look at it right now, ladies and gentlemen. You have the Broncos that are in the AFC Championship this weekend with home field advantage, taking on the Patriots. It was the big news that was out yesterday that the ticket vendor is limiting sales to only people within the Rocky Mountain region to keep this a true home field advantage type of situation. I absolutely love that. Keep those mass holes the hell out of Mile High and let's rock the house. We don't have Bo Nix, unfortunately, for the rest of the season. However, you have a hidden gem, a stud in Stidham, if you will. He's a guy who is a highly sought out backup that decided to stay here in Denver. He is getting paid a pretty penny to be a backup here in Denver as well in the process. Is spoken about very highly amongst many of those in the know in the football world. So I think that all being said, along with his paycheck as a backup and Sean Payton's tremendous success that he's had with backup quarterbacks throughout the years, there is still hope for the Broncos out there. Yes, you don't have your franchise guy. You don't have your first round quarterback who is the guy who not just is a franchise quarterback, but I believe with the way that he performed last weekend and put belt to ass with Josh Allen, I believe that he claimed ownership of the franchise, that this is now his club last weekend. Again, unfortunately, we don't have him going forward, but he will be there leading in spirit. You also have one of the top defenses in the league. So I think all of those things could really help going forward. And you never know what sort of Mile High magic may materialize this weekend. If you are going to be at the game, be loud, be proud, and let the Patriots know that we are for real. You have the Avalanche, who still have the best record in the NHL. The Nuggets are 29-14. They are the number 3 team in the Western Conference. They went 2-2 over the last week. They're on the heels of getting back a lot of big names into the lineup. So as long as they keep on staying afloat, well, it's going to be time to hit the ground running as they make that playoff push after the All-Star break in a couple of weeks toward that postseason, and you get the Joker back. The Rockies, well, Gianna Girardi made a post the other day saying that baseball season is almost here, but let's be honest. She is the best part about Rockies baseball. There's really no mistake about that. But overall, just want to give a shout out once again to the Mile High Sports crew. Check them out. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button wherever it is possible. Hit them up, whether it is the podcast side of things, the YouTube, the website, the magazines, the merch drops. Plenty of content and things to be had here from the Mile High Sports side. Again, thank you all to that crew out there. We're going to move along to the Colorado Rundown. If you have the chance, please buy the tickets directly from the fighters. It definitely helps them. It gives them commission, and it allows them to help continue to grow their platform and their brand in the process as they try to grow, elevate, and propel themselves to bigger platforms and opportunities out there in the future. You have Sparta with a double show going down on the 30th and the 31st. You have CJJC having the annual Grapple Bowl installment that's going to go on the Saturday before the Super Bowl. That is going to be on February 7th, going down at the Stampede. That's an afternoon show, so you're going to have plenty of chances to go out there, see some high-level grappling, and then go on and be about for the rest of your Saturday night. The next day on Super Bowl Sunday, we have Colorado Combat Club 28. We're going to have more on that card in the upcoming weeks as far as some of the matchups and some of the featured fighters that are going to be on that card. That is going down once again February 8th. Doors are going to be cracking at 12. We'll have you out of there before the game starts. So that is something to keep on your schedule there. But guys, without further ado, we move along to the weekend preview. Finally, the UFC has come back after 6 long weeks away. After us being fever pitched with our nuts swelled in anticipation from that UFC 324 card announcement, walking around looking like the Bulldog and Van Wilder, ready to bust like half of America after a Bella Danger showed up on our TVs during the national championship the other night. We are back. We are back. Guys, this is a tremendous kickoff to the Paramount era. As far as you want to talk about entertainment value with the matchups out there, yes, we lost the Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison super fight, which was arguably the most anticipated women's fight of all time, potentially in the UFC. I mean, at least within, dare I say, close to the last 8-10 plus years, this has been one of the biggest fights that there could have possibly been out there. 2 iconic superstars that had the chance to go. But even without that on the slate, you have exciting matchups that range from debutante hotshot prospects all the way up through established veterans and contenders, and you get a little razzle-dazzle with the cherry on top being an interim lightweight championship fight in that main event. And, oh yeah, there's multiple Denver-based fighters who are going to be on this card. Kicking off this Paramount era, you could not have asked for something better based off of the field that was available in the process. Let's run down the card. In the main card, starting off with the main event, you have number 4 ranked Justin Gaethje taking on Paddy Pimblett. This is a UFC interim lightweight championship bout. Justin Gaethje is literally a human highlight reel. He is pure violence personified. He has 14 bonuses with 14 trips to the octagon. He is a former interim champion. He was the BMF champion, and he's also fought for the undisputed title already a couple of times. You don't get more high level than that. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett is one of the biggest global superstars in the UFC, and it's no secret that the UFC's ultimate plan was for the massive fight between 2 of their biggest global superstars across a multitude of markets, that they wanted this fight to originally be Ilya and Paddy. We saw the buildup that was happening out in Qatar. We've had the back and forth between these guys for a long time. Well, with Ilya out of the equation for his personal reasons for the time being, insert Justin Gaethje. And for all of those reasons mentioned, you are never wrong for putting the human highlight reel in a title fight. He is going to bring it absolutely every single time that he goes out to the octagon. How many other people out there, I dare any of you to find me another example of somebody who over the course of 14 fights also has 14 bonuses in the process. If you can bring in an example and that is validated out there, you're not going to find one, but lunch is on me. Hit the chat, hit the comment section, and let us know. Give me your guesses out there, because again, you're not going to find somebody who has the resume and has the performance bonus accolades that Justin Gaethje does. You're not going to find it. Justin Gaethje is here to play spoiler to the UFC's plans once again. He did this back in 2020 when he filled in for Khabib Nurmagomedov when there was originally scheduled to be that cursed matchup of him and Tony Ferguson at UFC 249. That was the first card where we came back from COVID in the process. Khabib was unable to compete due to the restrictions that were in place, as well as his ailing father, who unfortunately went on to pass away in the process. But Justin Gaethje, again, he was ready for the opportunity when the call came. Justin Gaethje went out there and spoiled all of the plans that the UFC had in the process. Because, hey, say Tony would have won that fight, well, then they would have rebooked for a sixth time that Khabib and Tony matchup. But again, he went out there and he delivered a career-altering beating to the boogeyman El Kukui, Tony Ferguson. Paddy is a perfect 7-0 since his signing to the UFC. Though there is the widely scrutinized decision victory over Jared Gordon, where many people thought that he didn't win that decision. That was a gifted win. You're not going to get an argument from me from there. That's a valid critique of Paddy in the process, but he has finished 5 of his total 7 fights in the process, including the likes of Michael Chandler and Bobby King Green in his last 2 fights. But let's not for a second even pretend that these two are in the same stratosphere when it comes to their strength of schedule. With the exception of James Vick, who, I mean, you could even say that at the time he was 13-1 when they fought. Every single opponent that Justin Gaethje has made the walk to the octagon and fought against has been considered a hammer at the time of that matchup. Let's run down that list. Khabib Nurmagomedov. That was an undisputed title fight, and Khabib retired 29-0 as the undisputed champion. Tony Ferguson, as mentioned. That was an interim title fight. Tony was also a former interim title holder himself. Dustin Poirier fought him twice. Epic battles. That was a BMF title fight in which he won. Dustin was also a former interim champion and was a multiple-time undisputed title challenger himself. He fought Max Holloway at UFC 300, defending the BMF belt that he won from that fight against Dustin Poirier. Max Holloway is still the current BMF champion. He puts that belt on the line against Charles Oliveira here in a few weeks at the beginning of March. Max Holloway himself is also a generational icon who is a former undisputed champion. He's fought Charles Oliveira. That was an undisputed title fight. Charles Oliveira, a multiple-time champion himself. And as just mentioned, will be fighting for Max Holloway's BMF title beginning of March. Michael Chandler, Bellator champion, undisputed title challenger in the UFC. Fought against Edson Barbosa. That was a battle of 2 of the most extremely talented and gifted violent kickers that the UFC lightweight division has ever seen. He's fought against Otman, Rafael Fiziev twice. Epic striking battles between the 2 of them in those bouts. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who's a former undisputed title challenger. Eddie Alvarez, another Bellator champion who was also a UFC undisputed champion. And came into the UFC fresh off of a clean slate run through World Series of Fighting back in the day against the menace Michael Johnson, who we'll talk a little bit more about because he's on this card as well. But Michael Johnson has wins over both Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier. There is no comparison when it comes to their respective resumes. Paddy has his infamous claim that Scousers don't get knocked out. Well, he's going to get tested this weekend because he's never fought somebody who hits like a freight train the way that Justin Gaethje does. Never in his career so far. Paddy has slick jiu-jitsu. There's no denying that. Paddy is a very gifted and talented grappler. And now that he's grown into his body as a lightweight, Paddy's also a big lightweight. But I believe that Paddy lacks strong offensive wrestling. And he lacks strong offensive wrestling, especially against the likes of a Division I NCAA All-American like Justin Gaethje. I believe Justin Gaethje walks out of that octagon on Saturday night, UFC 324 T-Mobile Arena, with 12 pounds of gold wrapped around his waist. Moving on to the co-main event, you have this newly named co-main, since the original was supposed to be Nunes Harrison, but you have the number 3 ranked former champion Sugar Sean O'Malley taking on number 5 ranked Song Yadong in a bantamweight bout. As the former champion, obviously Sugar is accustomed to the lights. He's accustomed to the high stakes pressure of this game. But he's got a really stiff test on his hands against the rising contender in Song Yadong. O'Malley absolutely has the clear striking advantage. He has sniper-like precision. His timing is probably some of the best at 135 pounds, and he has legit knockout power. However, Yadong is a serviceable striker and has some pop in his hands. Where Yadong holds the advantage in this matchup is the wrestling department. As a team alpha male product, he comes from a wrestling heavy camp under the tutelage of one of the all-time greats, Uriah Faber, also amongst a stable of a lot of greats who have just been hammers throughout their time within the UFC and within other promotions. But that also could be trouble for Sugar, because in his last couple of fights against Merab Dvalishvili, he's shown that he really kind of struggles against a wrestler who has strong pressure with his top game. Sean has good jiu-jitsu. I mean, we've seen it whether it's on the Fight Pass Invitational, Quintet, some of these other grappling-specific formats. He's got solid grappling, but if you have a wrestler who just chooses to wet blanket you, will park in half guard and anchor the leg down and just work, it's a tough thing to deal with. Does Sugar have the tools to be able to get himself back up in the process? That is something that we're going to need to see on Saturday, because it's only a matter of time before Song shoots and tries to take him down. The question is, can the Sugar Show find his sniper shot before that time comes? In the next bout, you have number 5 ranked heavyweight Waldo Cortez Acosta taking on the fan favorite Black Beast Derek Lewis. Waldo Cortez Acosta has been on quite the run recently. He's on a streak. He's had some highlight reel knockouts that closed out 2025. However, I believe that hype train gets derailed on Saturday night. He's going to take on the UFC knockout king, Derek Lewis. And Derek Lewis right now looks to be in the best shape of his entire career. All Derek Lewis needs is just one punch to set the stage on fire. There has been the little bit of controversy that came about from Derek Lewis this week, saying that, oh yeah, the UFC gave him some peptides that, helped him get in the best shape, blah, 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 whatever. The Regenerate X or whatever the brand is, it's a sponsor of the UFC or a partner with the UFC. However, the UFC drug czar, the Golden Stitch, Jeff Davitsky, came out and said, no, they are not peptides. They are specific compounds that are third-party tested and approved per all of the protocol to be able to help. And there's a lot of fighters that are sponsored and taken care of by this same brand, just for the record out there. So he wasn't taking anything that is on the banned substance list. There's nothing illegal, nothing that is out of the scope of regular performance supplements, if you will, in the process. Plus, who doesn't want to see a Derek Lewis post-fight interview? That is always must-see TV. Whether it is Derek Lewis running around, taking his shorts off, throwing his cup into the crowd, asking where Ronda Rousey fine ass is at, saying that his balls are hot, saying that he's got to take a boo-boo. talking about what he's about to go do with his wife in the hotel room after. You do not ever want to miss a moment when Derek Lewis has a microphone and a camera on him. And I hope that to be the case on Saturday night. The next bout on the card, you have number 2 ranked Natalia Silva taking on number 6 ranked Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas does her training out of here in the greater Denver area. She is the former women's 115-pound champion. Natalia Silva is a rising contender in the 125-pound division who has her sights set on a title shot should she get past Rose this weekend. However, even though she's beaten Alexa Grasso, former champion as well, you could make the argument that she is facing her most seasoned opponent yet as she takes on Rose Namajunas. Thug Rose is the GOAT, the greatest woman of all time at 115 pounds, but at 125, she's still really good. I don't know if she's necessarily at that same championship elite of the elite level at 125. Part of what made her the GOAT, the cream of the crop at strawweight, was her fluidity of movement, her ability to seemingly float on air and poetically move throughout her exchanges. At 115, she was the epitome of putting the art in martial artist. I do believe that, especially with her not being really a big frame, that the extra 10 pounds that she's put on going from 115 to 125, it certainly factors into her ability to move and to be as nimble and as fast as she once was. In this matchup, though, Rose is the superior grappler, and she's relied a lot more on that aspect of her game since moving to flyweight. However, the agility, the fleet of foot, if you will, for Natalia Silva could certainly present some issues. The drawback to Natalia Silva's game and her point fighting style, where she's very kick heavy in the process, is the more kicks that she throws, depending on the placement, depending on the quickness and her effective ability to return those kicks, leads for more opportunities for Rose to potentially catch one and take the action down to the canvas. Obviously, from the hometown side of things, Rose is a friend of the program. She's one of ours that we claim here in the Denver area. We want Rose in this matchup, but it's going to be a tough fight, and I think that it is going to be an entertaining bout on that card. Kicking off the main card, you have a great featherweight matchup between two top 10 ranked guys. You have number 6 Arnold Allen making his return, taking on Lord Gene Silva. If we're being honest, this one is kind of hard for me to analyze or to give you a real accurate interpretation of what may go down, simply because Arnold Allen has been out for so long. We don't know what he's bringing back to the cage in this fight. He's 1-2 in his last 3 fights, but we do also have to point out, and we do have to note, that those losses were to Movsar Avoyev, the number 1 ranked contender of the division, as well as Max Holloway, one of the Mount Rushmore guys of the featherweight division. We have not seen Arnold Allen in action since July 2024. On the other hand, his dance partner, John Silva, he's fought 4 times while earning 4 performance bonuses in that same time since we last saw Arnold Allen make the trip to the octagon. Silva is a kill or be killed type of fighter. We saw that in the matchup at Noche against Diego Lopez. It ultimately worked to his detriment in that fight, but Arnold Allen is not the finisher that Diego Lopez is. That's why Diego Lopez is fighting for the title at UFC 325. I believe that Silva's pressure, his tenacity, and just his overall level of violence will overwhelm a potentially cage rust-ridden Arnold Allen. Moving along to the prelims. On the main event side of the prelims, you have number 2 ranked Umar Nurmagomedov taking on number 6th ranked Taituguera Davison Figueiredo. On paper, this seems like a fun matchup, right? Based on the name value here. You have Nurmagomedov and you have Figueiredo, who was a former champion at 25. But Davison Figueiredo is 38 years old now at this point, and he's a far cry from the form that he once was as the God of War at 125 pounds. And his power that he had during that championship run at 125 has not translated to 135 pounds. He had kiss of death power where he one killed people at 125. He does not have that at 135 pounds. He's slowed down a step. He's used a lot more of his grappling in the process, but you have an elite level grappler in Nurmagomedov. Umar is in his crotch sniffing prime right now. This could potentially be the fight where you go on and have your snack break because you might be in for a 15-minute snoozer. All due respect to them, they are both top-ranked guys, but based off of Umar's style, he's just not exciting. He's a really good fighter. He's talented. He's got a lot of skill. It takes a tremendous amount of ability to be able to hold somebody down for the entirety of a contest, but it doesn't also mean that it's something that's going to be entertainment value based. Moving along in the next matchup comes in the middleweight division. You have Atiba Gauthier, who has taken on Andre Pulayev. Guys, don't blink. This is the one that you don't want to miss as far as the prelims go. You don't go take your vitamin break. You don't go grab a coldie. You don't hit a snack or anything, bathroom break, whatever, in this fight. Gauthier is, I believe, the next big thing at middleweight. The dude's 3 fights in the UFC have barely went past the total time of 1 round. He has that kiss of death type of power in his hands. He's from the same country as Francis Ngannou, who also was a crazy power puncher, both Cameroonians. Yeah. Pulayev, obviously, he's a quality guy. He's a good opponent in the process, but I don't think that their trajectories are on the same pathway. Naturally, there's always the chance that something happens. He's able to draw him past that initial time and the power doesn't hold up past those first few minutes. But again, Gauthier is one of those guys that all he needs is one, as he's shown so far in his career. He finds that opportunity sometime within the first 7.5 minutes, let's call it. Next matchup to round off the undercard, you have the number 13 ranked Nikita Krylov, who has taken on Modestas Bukauskas. It's a light heavyweight matchup. This is a matchup between a couple of journeymen in the division who they don't necessarily move the needle, if we're being completely honest, in comparison to some of the names and the star power that we have on the rest of the card. However, it could still be a very quality fight. In terms of ability, it is seemingly a fairly even matchup overall, but you're also looking at 2 guys who are at 2 very different points or at 2 very different roads in their respective careers right now at the moment. We've seen a steady decline of Krylov over the last couple of years, whereas Bukauskas is on a 4-fight win streak with 3 finishes. Bukauskas, one of those guys who he's at multiple tours within the UFC, had to go back down to the regional level and build himself and come back up. He's overcame some pretty devastating injuries in the process, like when he took that oblique kick to the knee and his leg just exploded disgustingly in the middle of the octagon a few years ago. Well, he's been able to rally himself back and put himself in a position where he is on a card that is one of the most highly anticipated in quite some time as we embark on this Paramount Plus era. That rounds off the regular prelim portion. Now we've got a couple of fights to talk about on the early prelims. Rounding off the early prelims, you have the number 11 ranked Alex Perez taking on number 13 ranked Charles Johnson in the flyweight division. This is a great matchup between two highly experienced veteran flyweights. Now, on a personal disclosure level, matchups between friends, they're always tough to analyze. They're tough for me to go through and to say, oh, I think one guy may be this, one guy may be that. It's hard because of that close connection that I have with both of these guys throughout the years. Alex Perez was my roommate at one point in time. Charles Johnson, we've been friends for years and years, dating all the way back to when he was in the LFA. I mean, the last time when he fought in Denver, we were in the barbershop just BSing for probably like an hour after we both got our cuts. Since challenging for the UFC title, though, against Davison Figueiredo a few years back, Alex has unfortunately faced a slew of injuries that have been pretty devastating, pretty significant. A lot of them required significant amount of time away, surgeries, recovery processes, so on and so forth. And they've hindered his performances, his ability to stay active with frequency of schedule and fights. And some of these injuries, they happen in front of the world to see, like when his knee got blown against Tatsuro Taira in that matchup. Credit to Tatsuro for pulling off the win and all that, but that it was rough to watch. It's rough to see anybody get hurt in the process, right? Like, obviously they're going in there with bad intentions, trying to hurt each other, but an injury like that where the knee gets blown and that somebody's basically going to be out for the next, 9 months to a year, having to deal with surgery and recovery. It's always a tough thing to see, just like how we talked about Modestas Bukauskas in the last fight. Alex is a really strong wrestler. He has some pop in his hands. We saw him knock out Mateus Nicolau, but Charles Johnson also has some pop in his hands. Charles Johnson is a cardio king. He was a steeplechase athlete back in the day. He was a scholarship winner at Tiger Muay Thai over in Thailand. He's won 5 of his last 6, including a knockout win against the current flyweight champion, Joshua Van. That happened here in Denver at Ball Arena. At 35 years old, the energy of the energy is not showing any signs of slowing down soon. Should make for a quality matchup in that flyweight division. The next bout on the card, we have a matchup between the menace Michael Johnson and Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez in the lightweight division. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Michael Johnson is the ultimate enigma. He's beaten some of the best guys that the division has had to offer, or respective divisions, whether you're still down at 45 to 55, so on and so forth. He's beaten some of the best guys that the UFC has put his way. Like we said, Dustin Poirier knocked him out. Tony Ferguson has a win over him. He was the last guy to beat Tony Ferguson before Tony went on that illustrious run that was basically a dozen fights unbeaten and led him to being an interim champion. He was the last guy to beat Tony before all that happened. But on the flip side, Michael Johnson has also gotten sparked and sent to the shadow realm against guys that you would think, man, how are they even in the same cage together? The question is always, what version of him do you get? At this point, after the wars that he's had in the cage and some of those devastating knockout losses to some of the wars that we've seen on camera, from whether it was back in the day of Hard Knocks, Black Zillions, Samford, Killcliff, whatever the name change and iteration that he's had throughout all of the years, how much has he left of himself in the gym? How much is left in the tank for Michael Johnson? Alexander Hernandez, on the other hand, hey, he's a friend of the program. I've been in the gym for a considerable amount of time throughout the years with Alex in the process. Ever since his UFC debut, where he knocked out a top-ranked Beneil Dariush at the time in the first round right away, he's shown flashes of greatness. Early on, he struggled to find some balance of consistency from fight to fight. That is no longer the case. Coming into this matchup, Alex is riding a 4-fight win streak. This is the longest win streak of his UFC tenure, and he had back-to-back knockouts closing out 2025. I believe that as long as Alex can stay disciplined and not engage in a brawl and an all-out firefight, stick to what he does best in picking away and finding that shot, I think that he could very well end up with a highlight reel finish against another big name veteran like Michael Johnson. In the next bout here on the early prelims, we're going to talk Josh Hokett taking on Denzel Freeman. This is another heavyweight bout. The heavyweight division, we've said it for quite some time. It's been boo-boo for a minute. They are desperately searching for someone to come in and be an attraction. Enter Josh Hokett. The former NFL player has some real skills inside of the octagon, but where he really shines the most, let's be honest, is him on the microphone cutting promos. He brings an Uncle Chael / Ric Flair sort of style to his promos in the process. I mean, mix in maybe a dash of old school Mach and Hogan in the process, and that's where you get the razzle-dazzle of Josh Hokett on the mic. His opponent, though, Denzel Freeman, United States Marine Corps vet, is a serious problem who also presents a quality narrative for the UFC to be able to sell. A U.S. Greco team member as well in the process. Both guys have a strong wrestling background. That being said, we could very well see them slug it out on the feet. Sometimes or oftentimes that is the case when you have two guys who are a mirror match within certain skill sets. Obviously, there's a bit of a difference between a U.S. Greco guy versus a D1, a D1 folk style guy, the way that Hokett was out at Fresno State. But again, two guys with strong wrestling in their back pocket. The next matchup, we have a bantamweight bout between Ricky Turcios and Cameron Smotherman. Ricky Turcios really rose to prominence after being cast on The Ultimate Fighter, but he's had just 2 fights since 2022. Ricky was a regional champion. He had a couple of great post-fight interviews that really spread him like wildfire across not just MMA pages, but a lot of inspirational posts and podcasts and so on and so forth with his "Believe in Yourself" speech that he had years ago. But again, just as fast as his star was starting to rise and was starting to burn bright, has been the opposite effect of him cooling off, and at a point to where now he's the second fight on an early prelim. He's taken on Cameron Smotherman, who also cut his teeth through the Fury regional scene. Smotherman is a good boxer who has some serious pop in his hands. That right hand is something vicious, but Smotherman is in a desperate state for a victory. He's on the heels of back-to-back losses. That's never a good position for anyone to be in, especially in a division like 135 pounds where there is so much talent and so many guys who are chomping at the bit to be able to get in. He can't afford to take another loss. His crazy power, along with that level of desperation, if you will, could potentially be a very dangerous combination. On the flip side, he could very well run himself into an issue where he allows for a fit-in, gets taken down by Ricky Turcios, who is a solid grappler and could get submitted. We will see how that all plays out in this second fight on the early prelims. And then opening up the card, we have a welterweight matchup between Adam Fugit, who is a 37-year-old 2-3 veteran in the UFC that has taken on an undefeated 25-year-old debutant in Ty Miller. I did commentary for one of Ty Miller's very first amateur fights way back in the day at Colorado Combat Club 7. I knew then and there that night that kid was going to be something special. He just had some it factor to his game. He furthered that notion a couple years later, fighting as a professional at Magnus Arena here for an LFA card where he folded Ryan Charleboy, who was a quality veteran on the scene, on the local scene here, He made him look like a toy in Toy Story when Andy came into the room. Goes on, has a strong performance on the Contender Series, and gets signed in the process. He will be making his debut this weekend once again, and I think that it is the perfect matchup for the young gun from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to start his UFC run. Overall, I think that the matchmakers knock this one out of the park. I think that it's an exciting slate of fights that you're going to have usher in this Paramount Plus era. Let's freaking go. Now, again, there are so many different angles that come into this card, but just take the entertainment value for what it is. Paramount is looking to deliver pure entertainment for you guys. We've been 6 weeks without fights. Soak it all in, folks. But now we're going to move along to Kurtz's message of the week. Guys, January marks the anniversary to the journey that I first started on almost a decade ago. I've been in the trenches in the process, and it all began with just a voice recorder on an iPhone in my basement once upon a time. I didn't have fancy equipment. I didn't have anything special, no studio, no producer, no anything like that. Just hard work, dedication, and a desire to change my life. The fight game has blessed me with some of the most incredible moments and experiences that I could have ever imagined. I never thought that some of this was possible 10 years ago. I've gone coast to coast, northern border to southern border, working with some of the best people and best organizations in the world. Like anything, though, there's been ups and downs. But consistency with the relentless forward pursuit of chasing this dream has always led me to have an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. And at times what seems like a flash, I went from being a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed rookie to a seasoned vet with the type of skin in the game that you only get by having years and years of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm blessed to be in a position where I'm kind of that unk role now for some guys out there. I was just having a conversation with some young man at the gym last night who was asking for some advice. And in a nutshell, the message was sometimes you've got to get out of your own way. You've got to just start. Whenever you are forging a new path, whether it is something in life, career-wise, a passion project, a new hobby, anything to that effect, at the beginning, you're going to suck. You're going to do dumb stuff, and you are going to face failure a lot. But if you have the grit and you have the balls to keep on going despite your shortcomings, you will eventually be able to find your breakthrough moments. The only 3 things in this life that we control are our attitude, our gratitude, and our effort. You have to have short-term memory with bulletproof confidence, and sometimes you have to go through it to get to it. Having the self-discipline to continue to complete the reps builds confidence. Confidence with continuous effort builds momentum. Momentum leads to breakthroughs and opportunities. As you scale up, success doesn't get easier, ladies and gentlemen. It gets harder. But in that time, hopefully you have equipped yourself with the skills, the tools, and the resources that are necessary to continue to be able to get up off of the stool and answer the bell every single time that it rings. I've messed up a lot of things along the way, but I've also got a lot right. I'm not afraid to fail, but I am deathly afraid of the regret of not trying, of the fear of what could have been. That's what I'm afraid of. Discipline over motivation, consistency over perfection. I want to say thank all of you for the support throughout the years. It means the world to me for all the messages, all the likes, the shares, the follows, the coming up and saying what's up at events or whatever it may be. I am grateful for all of it. But that wraps up our Kurtz's message of the week. We're going to move along to our highly anticipated 3 rounds. Got my man Danny Bailey behind the boards. First round, my brother. What do we have?
All right, Jordan. PFL executives are dropping like flies. What's going on?
Well, this morning, the news broke that dumbass Don Davis is stepping down as the PFL chairman. This comes just days after the news that PFL president Ray Sefo left the organization, and former CEO Peter Murray also recently stepped down from his role within the company. Honestly, Don Davis leaving is quite possibly the best thing that can happen for what looks to be a sinking ship. Just to give you a little bit of Don Davis's gibberish statement, he said, "Today, I'm stepping down as chairman of PFL. I care deeply about each employee, value highly every investor, respect greatly our fighters, and appreciate sincerely all our fans who supported this company. I gave you everything I got." Buddy, you screwed the pooch at every turn of the way. Almost every statement was an open mouth insert foot moment. And you nosedived the company into general irrelevance. Don Davis has left the PFL at a critical time for the company as they're on the last year of their ESPN broadcast deal that ends at the end of 2026. Just prior to Davis stepping down, PFL hired the former Time Warner executive John Martin to come in as the new CEO. Not sure exactly how that'll play out. The major takeaway here is, though, they have to figure out a way to finally start making some money. They hemorrhage cash while generating next to none. Their fight week operations are substandard for what they claim to be the number 2 show in the world. I get that not everybody can do all of the things, have all of the amenities, all of the resources, so on and so forth that the UFC does. But there are regional shows that are far more organized than the donkey show that I've personally witnessed the PFL carry out. It's a joke. It's a true donk out there. It is so unorganized in the process. They've got some new investors that are involved that are helping raise capital for the company. But more than that, they need an immediate strategy that will have some innovation to try and pull them out of the quicksand that they are in. Oh, yeah. Jake Paul also, he's out. His deal is done with the PFL too. So you're losing a massive influencer factor there. The Francis Ngannou deal, nightmare. You've seen Francis fight for the PFL one time in the process. One thought after this year, though, once all of their deliverables and obligations have been satisfied, scrap the PFL brand entirely, rebrand or rebuild as something new. You could keep a lot of your same infrastructure if you start to find some traction within this year, but do as you did, what was it, 2017 around in there when you rebranded from World Series of Fighting after all the controversies that existed there to become the PFL. Scrap that bad taste in everybody's mouth that they have with the PFL and start with something fresh. Just a thought.
Conor McGregor has been in the headlines after saying his contract is now void due to the new Paramount Plus deal with the UFC. What are your thoughts?
I call cap on it being outright void. But I do think that Conor is absolutely trying to renegotiate his deal since his current contract that he signed some years back was heavily laced with pay-per-view incentives. Say what you want about Conor. He is by far the cash king. He is the most profitable star that mixed martial arts has ever seen. He is the biggest selling pay-per-view draw that has ever made the walk to the octagon. There's no doubt about that. The numbers are factual. You can check that at any point in time. There's no discrepancy to that. When he says that he was the pay-per-view king, yes, he was. That's why he's the first billion-dollar athlete within MMA as well. So I can totally see him wanting to reconfigure things so that he is getting a bigger piece of the pie. He's getting more compensation once he's back from his suspension, which I believe is up next month in February. I still think that the White House card is in play for him, but I highly doubt there's any legs to this Masvidal fight rumors. Dana's also shot it down, but that's not the first time that we've seen Dana shoot something down either that ultimately comes true. I still think that the best bout or the best option for him is going to be that Michael Chandler fight. And, I think that is, if we're being honest, that's, as far as a name value guy, that's the best chance that Conor has to potentially beat somebody. But again, who knows what form that he comes back to after all of his issues and so much time away.
Dricus Du Plessis got bored during his loss to Khamzat Chimaev. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a pretty retarded way to say that you got your ass whooped and you got outskilled. I mean, you're the champion and you got bored. Well, you lack the fundamental ability to get up from the bottom. And yeah, you could say that it was a boring matchup, but why didn't you do anything about it? And you said, oh yeah, Khamzat didn't engage in a fight. He didn't turn it into a fight. Well, when you showed zero practical ability to be able to get up off of your back and be ridden like a wet blanket for the better course of 25 minutes, why would he, as the challenger, go put himself in danger? Why would he take the risk that at that moment is seemingly unnecessary in the process when he can just ride this victory out, take no damage in the process, secure 12 pounds of gold around his waist, financially change the rest of his life, etch his name in history as a champion? Why would he take the risk to do anything otherwise? If you showed zero technical ability to change the status quo of what was going on right then and there in the cage, saying that you got bored in the process, what a dumbass donkey of the day sort of statement that you could have possibly made. And that's probably why Dricus is not getting an immediate title shot. He's going to have at least a couple of fights to be able to get himself back into that contention. Dricus's coach said, if they fought again, that it would be a beatdown. Well, would it though? Have you done the work in the wrestling department to be able to work get-ups? Have you worked on any sort of jiu-jitsu to present threats from the bottom? What are you going to do that is going to keep the same outcome from happening again? Because what you showed in the last fight, you didn't have the fundamental tools to be able to do a damn thing about it. But just like that, folks, we are all out of time. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in for us each and every week with original combat sports programming out there. Your support allows us to continue to do what we do in the process. Please make sure that you're checking out the schedule for some of those local shows that are on the horizon coming up. Come and check out some of the games, the watch parties, and all those things that are happening down here at the number 38. I believe that there's a watch party situation going on this weekend. Is that correct, Danny?
That is correct. We got a bunch of fun stuff going down before the AFC Championship game. We'll have a little bit of analysis and kind of hyping up the crowd pregame, and then we'll be doing some giveaways throughout. So definitely come by 38 if you're looking for a place. It's a pretty rowdy environment around here.
There you have it right there, folks. From the man himself, Danny will be in the house, rocking it down, holding it down for our Mile High staff that's going to be making things a party atmosphere here in the process. But again, just want to say thank you to all of you out there. Thank you to the Mile High Sports crew. I'm Jordan Kurtz. You can give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on Instagram and on Threads. Check me out on TikTok, the Peanut Gallery MMA. We'll be back with you next week, same time, same place. This is the MMA Plug on Mile High Sports.